we are so excited to have his storytelling gifts, his sales skills, experience with doTERRA and what we do and what we share so that we all can learn from him and what he's put together for you today. My friends, welcome Chris Smith.
I love being here, and I love doTERRA and everything it stands for. And usually before I do anything with doTERRA, I put on a little bit of passion and balance just to get crazy, you know? But so here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about enrollment and what it really means to enroll. And I believe that your golden ticket in life, the key to getting anything you want in your life and in your business, is learning how to enroll. Amen. Everything in life is enrollment. There isn't anything that doesn't involve enrolling and enrollment. And what's interesting is how much time and effort and energy, though, we'll spend on everything but enrollment. So how many things what do we do to work on the business? Just give me some ideas. What are some different things that we can do? What's that? Okay, invite. Classes. Follow up. My mojo was off, and I realized it's because I didn't have the Madonna mic. Is that good? Okay. What else? Sample. What about like marketing, social media? Like what about that kind of stuff? What else? Okay. Support groups. Yeah, social media. What's that? Posts. Team meetings. Anyone in here work on marketing, podcasts, any of that kind of stuff? Okay. Videos, shoot videos, right? Okay, you want to know the honest truth that's going to be really hard to hear, because it was really hard for me to hear. You want to know what most of these things really are for most of us? Opportunities to hide from enrollment. We do all of this so we don't have to go be confronted with enrolling people into this business that can change their lives. And if we can just have an honest conversation about that and realize like the gift we have to enroll people is the gift we have to change their lives. And I myself, like as someone who loves to enroll, I'll do just about anything I can at times in my business to not enroll. How many of you have been at places in your business where you've actually thought more about building the business than you've actually built it? Right? I think it's because we get hung up on this idea of like, well, what is enrollment? And I just want to confront that today and talk about enrollment and maybe give you a new perspective and maybe help you see enrollment in a way that you've never seen it before. Now, for just some context on that, I also maybe take this to the extreme of where I should be doing a little bit of this. Because people say, well, Chris, how does this relate to you and your business? My first year in business, when I started this thing called the Campfire Effect several years ago, my first year in business with no website, no team members, no upsells, no follow through, we did $600,000 in revenue in a little coaching company. My second year, with a really crappy website that worked about half the time and a part-time support person. Everyone still hear me okay? I've been told my entire life to be quiet, so I'm pretty loud. Our second year in business, we did just over $700,000 in revenue. Our third year in business, we finally built a website, finally got some support, and we did $1.1 million in business.
And I never ran an ad. I never emailed my list. I didn't do a podcast. And I'm not saying that's smart. I'm not saying that's the best. Like, I just emailed my list. Some people some of my friends and entrepreneurs shamed me into emailing my list finally. Last week, for the first time ever in the history of my business, I emailed my own email list to put on a webinar. Yeah, it's like a big deal for me, right? It's like, wow, like this whole marketing thing works, and we enroll people from it, right? But it's just we do all of this stuff. And I just have this feeling like until we're really out making a difference for people, until we're really enrolling, it's like, do we have any business doing a lot of the things that we spend time on? And so in my mind, I was kind of like, I'm going to earn the right to have a podcast by getting my business to a certain point before I ever even think about having a podcast. I'm going to earn the right to actually email my list and offer them something before I've done the work. And so I want to share with you in this next slide just a cool story of a client we recently worked with. He's a naturopathic doctor. And what's interesting about his situation is when I first met him, he was a client of ours. And then in turn, he lives near us, so I became a patient of his. So he's now my doctor. And when I was in meeting with him after the pandemic happened, I was just talking with him and I was like, hey, Jeremy, how's business? Because he'd come and gone through the campfire effect. He said, well, I'm actually really struggling. He said, we're generating just as many leads as we've ever generated, but people are not enrolling. People are not moving forward. They're really nervous, they're unsure, and they're hanging on to their money. And he said, and quite frankly, to be honest, I'm struggling to enroll because I'm nervous about asking people money in a time like this. Who has had that thought since the pandemic happened? Raise them up. Okay, I want you to keep them up. Be honest. Like, who has had the thought, like, is now the time to enroll? Is now the time to ask people for money? Right? And that's exactly where Jeremy was at. He was doing about 18% of all of his leads he would convert. And he was following a sales training that was really, really tactical, that didn't feel like him. Who in here has been through some type of sales training in one shape or form or another? Who absolutely loves the sales training that they've been through and feels like it's like super authentic and allows them to be themselves? Okay, 1, 2, 3 people. Okay, here's the problem with most sales training. The problem with sales training is it was built for salespeople. Like, this dawned on me one day and I was like, wow, there's a big issue in the sales training industry. Because as far as I know, from all the people I've met in doTERRA, there's very few people in doTERRA that would actually consider themselves salespeople. They would consider themselves purpose-driven, heart-focused, mission-centered entrepreneurs that want to make a difference. And yet we try to follow a sales training that's built for people who are salespeople. And it doesn't work for us a lot of times. It's not sustainable. Well, what if there was a sales training that was built for people who aren't salespeople, but are built for heart-centered, mission-focused entrepreneurs? And that's what we've created with the enrollment narrative. It's a story-based approach to selling that actually feels good, and it's void of tactics, and it's not scripted. You don't want to be scripted. So I want to tell you why I believe so much in enrollment. So in this next slide is the most powerful enrollment conversation that's ever taken place for me. Some of you have heard this story, but you might not know all the details of the backstory. 10 years ago, my wife and I were separated, gonna get divorced. We had 2 little boys, and I was at the lowest point in my life. I feel like a failure as a husband, as a father, as an entrepreneur. I had 2 failing businesses. I owed my father-in-law money. It was the first time in my life I'd ever experienced hopelessness. And I couldn't see any possibility for my life. Like, I just could not see. I don't know unless you've been in that place in your life where you feel like you're in no doors, no windows, you just can't see, couldn't. And I was really ready to give up. And then the person who I consider today my hero, who's with me here today, without 5 kids in that picture, which is awesome, is my wife. And she enrolled me. She always tells me, do not point me out when you speak in the venue. Like, she enrolled me into a vision of what could be possible for us. And that, enrolling me into, at least being willing to go see the marriage counselor, even though I showed up to the appointment with the intention of sabotaging it, which isn't the greatest probably place to be when you're going into the marriage counseling appointment, is to prove why this won't work. She enrolled me into that, and then this amazing marriage counselor who just saw me and held space for me enrolled me into a possibility of what could be. and literally enrolled me into like the life I have today. And it was in that moment I realized, like, wow, I'm the author of my story. Like, I can pick up the pen and write a new narrative for my life and go live into it. But it was all enrollment. Can you see that? And I don't think sometimes we think that enrolling is just selling. Enrolling is so much bigger than selling. And there's something really interesting taking place in the world today. Anyone guess what the common thread is between Airbnb, General Electric, Walt Disney, Trader Joe's, Hyatt, WhatsApp, General Motors, FedEx? There's a really significant common thread. You might look at those like, wow, they're all different industries. Okay, they're all going through massive change right now. What else? They're promoted by word of mouth. Okay. Okay, all of those are true, and there's something deeper. Every single one of them was born out of a recession and a time of uncertainty. Woo! So this next quote I love is my new favorite quote. When nothing is sure, everything is possible. Do you realize that right now, today, we live in a time where there's more uncertainty and more unsureness than ever in the history of our lifetimes? And some of us are just gonna like make it through to the other side and completely miss out on what's been handed to us by the universe and what's been given to us. People are searching for real. People are searching for truth. People are searching for connection now more than ever in lifetimes, more than ever in the history of any one of our lifetimes. I don't care what age you are. There's never been as much uncertainty and as much unsure as there is in the world today. And what that means is everything is possible because of nothing sure. If there was ever a time to double down on your business, if there was ever a time to double down on your life, if there was ever a time to invest in yourself and invest in coaching and invest in your business, there's just never been a better time than now. But what's interesting is there's people that would have you believe otherwise. There's a lot of people that have you believe like, oh, now's not the time to do business. Now's not the time to do enrollment. People have lost their jobs. People are struggling. And you know what I think about that? I think it's a bunch of bullcrap that's driven by fear. If you have something that can bless people's lives and blesses humanity and makes a difference for people, you should be more radically committed to enrolling right now than you've ever been in your business. And I get that it's scary. Do you think people need more help when things are really, really great in our economy and in the world, or when things are really uncertain? That's when people need help the most. And they're searching for truth. Like they're searching for answers. They're searching for connection. And you have something, like especially in your business, you really have something that can bless people's lives and give them hope. In so many different areas, but I just wonder if we see it that way. Like, now is the time to grow your business. Now is the time to push the chips all in. Like so many great companies, so many great leaders are born out of these times because every time there's a time of recession, every time there's a time of uncertainty, these things are at play and people see like, wow, there's an opportunity to go serve people in a way that they're not being served because of what's happened. So what is enrollment? Term, and I'm thinking, what is enrollment? I throw that term around all the time, like, you know, we got to enroll. What is it?
Enlisting people into your vision.
Okay, enlisting people into your vision. What else? Okay, it's conversion. Okay, it's inspiring them. So I want to show you some quotes. How many of you guys recognize these? What is that?
Enrollment.
The Declaration of Independence. You want to know what it really is? It's an enrollment document. It was enrolling people into a vision of what could be if they would take a stand for themselves, and take a stand for their freedom, and take a stand for their liberty, and take a stand for their families, and take a stand for living life on their terms. It was them declaring hey, we're not going to live this way, and we're going to enroll into a vision of what could be. What about this next one? What's that?
Preamble.
Yes, the preamble. What it really is, it's an enrollment statement. Okay, what about the next one? This one might be a little tougher. I love this one because it says it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. Yeah, the Gettysburg Address. What about the next quote? What was that speaking to? 9/11. You can be sure that the American spirit will prevail over this tragedy. So we look at these things, some of the most powerful speeches ever given in the history of the world, in the history of mankind, that shaped, nations and countries. And those were leaders who were enrolling people into a possibility of what could be. Now what's interesting, in any one of those statements, was that actually what was at play at the present? Or were they making a declaration of what could be? Yeah, what could be? Andy, will you play the video? Oh, it looks like the bottom left there, Andy, with the sound.
Later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
You see that what we're talking about with that is you might not initially hear that speech and think about enrollment or enrolling. Now, interesting, if I explained a situation to you, I want you to tell me what term we would give it in the business world. And the situation is, I meet someone where they're at, I help elevate their vision of what's possible, and then I lead them there and I guide them there. What would we call that in the business world? That act of elevating someone to see what leading them. Mentoring, leadership. You know what fundamentally changed my view of enrollment was the day I realized that enrollment is just leadership. What would change for you if you saw that enrollment is just me showing up as a leader and leading people to the possibility of what could be in their lives? Because every single one of the speeches was delivered by a really great leader. And there's no coincidence that why in my life, when I started thinking about this, I was like, what's crazy is the most powerful leaders that I know also happen to be the most powerful enrollers. And the most effective enrollers that I've ever met happen to be the most powerful leaders. There's something to this idea of enrollment and leadership. But do we think of ourselves that way? Like when we're getting ready to invite someone to do something in the business? When we're enrolling them, do we think about, wow, I'm like showing up like a leader, like I'm a leader in this. This is leadership. What would change for you? Maybe if you saw enrollment like leadership and you showed up to it in your mind, like I'm showing up to this like a leader. Like I'm a leader in this conversation or in this interaction. What might change for you? Confidence, how so? Yeah. Yeah, do you think it would change like who you're being in the conversation? And that's this intangible that no one ever talks about, right? When it comes to sales and enrollment, we're always talking about scripts. We're always talking about the words. Ask this question here. You're supposed to generate emotional connection here. It's like, I think it's kind of tough to plan emotional connection, right? But sales is taught that way. They might cry here, they might laugh here. It's like, that is so terrible. Like, that is so scripted and just like fake and inauthentic. But that's how I usually feel if I show up like, oh, I've got to make an enrollment. I'm here to sell. But what if it's like, no, I'm here to be a leader? Yeah. You might like show up like, wow, like who I'm being in this is like, I'm here to serve. Yeah. So that's the first thing that I want to talk to you about, like as enrollment, is if we can change our mindset around what enrollment really is and what it isn't, is that we might see that really enrollment is just leadership. Like that's what enrollment is. Now, why do we struggle with enrollment? Okay, we're uncertain. Afraid of being judged? Totally. Yeah, not willing to risk the relationship, right? So we have uncertain, fear of being judged, not willing to risk the relationship. Why else? What else do we struggle with enrollment? What's that? Yeah, it's like, I don't like them. It's like, look, I just want to force you to say yes because I know it's best for you and I know this is going to bless you. You just need to say yes, right? We have a hand up over here. Another. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, sometimes it's like, oh man, it's amazing I enrolled them. Oh man, it's amazing. Like, I just enrolled them, right? Like, there's work to do. Yeah, fear of the future, right? Oh, that's not an issue for anyone, right? You're the only one I think that struggles with that. We all have these stories about money, right? That we bring into it. We project on the enrollment. Can I share with you something that would do away with all of that for you?
Yes, please.
One thought, one thing that would eliminate all of the mental hangups and the blocks you have around enrollment. And it's something that a mentor of mine taught me. And this mentor drove me nuts because every time we had a call, a coaching call, he would end every call with these like one-line cryptic messages. And then he'd be like, all right, dude, I gotta go. And then leave me for a whole week to like uncode the message. And he would never give me the answers like a good coach, right? And one time he said to me, he said, Chris, you're gonna learn that the key to influence and the key to enrolling in life and being a really influential, powerful leader is by having no place to get. Okay, I'll talk to you next week. And I'm like, he just did it again. What is that? No place to get? Like, I've got 5 kids. I've got lots of places to get to. And the more I reflected on that, and the more I thought about that, the more he taught me what that really means. What do you hear when I say no place to get in an enrollment conversation? There's no place to get. Oh, the key to enrollment, the key to being a really authentic, influential, powerful leader is having no place to get.
Having no agenda.
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean have no agenda? It's an enrollment call, dude. I'm enrolling them. Okay, so no agenda, Laura?
Not attached to the outcome.
Yeah, how hard is that to do though in a sales and enrollment environment? What do you think is limiting when we show up to an enrollment conversation with an agenda or the outcome in mind before we even talk? Yeah, what's limiting about it is all the stuff you just said. Like, I'm worried about being judged. I'm worried about like being unsure. I'm worried about like the money conversation. Like all of that's at play when I have an outcome and an agenda that I'm trying to get to, because what if I don't get there? What if it messes up, right? Someone else had a hand up. Yeah. Yeah, so what would it look like if every enrollment opportunity or every enrollment situation you showed up with no place to get? You literally had no intention or no agenda other than to serve them. But the furthest thing from your mind is selling them something. The furthest thing from your mind is getting them to come do something or buy something. What would that create for you if you showed up with no place to get? What would it look like for you? What would be possible? Okay, how many of us have been guilty of someone's talking and you're sitting there the whole time nodding like, and you're not hearing a word they're saying because you're thinking of what you're going to say next or what question you're going to ask next, right? So the thing he taught me, and I'm so glad you brought that up. What's your name? Aaron. Eric? He said, Chris, you have to know that whatever your intention is in an enrollment conversation is the only place you listen from. It's the only place you hear from. And it's also the only place you generate language and questions from. So if I go into an enrollment situation with the intention of enrolling, what's the only thing I hear, Eric?
They're going to buy something no matter what.
The only thing I hear is whatever I got to do to get the sale. The only thing I think to say or the question I think to ask is going to get me to my intention. What do I start to really hear? I start to hear what they're saying, but I also start to hear what they're not even saying. And there's just this depth of the connection, and they feel it, and it's just a different experience for them. Like I've had situations where in the enrollment itself, and I'm enrolling people into like a really high ticket coaching program, they'll like stop the enrollment and they'll be like, this is different. They're like, you are so present and so connected in the questions you ask. It's like, how'd you come up with those questions? Like, just by being with you. The questions are generated like, in an effort to serve you from a place of service, because I have no place to get. What am I free to say if there's no place to get? Yeah, there's nothing to mess up. Any of you ever felt like being a little bit bold on an enrollment call and you kind of hold back because you don't want to like offend somebody or you don't want to be too bold? There's no such thing as too bold when there's no place to get. Now, for those of you who are a little bit bold already, that's not a license to just be like, oh, okay, game on, I'm letting people have it, right? But I really think that one of the reasons we struggle with enrollment is we think there's a place to get. We really do think that there's this agenda or this intention, this outcome. And the thing I want you to really know about this idea, there's no place to get, when there's no place to get, we can get anywhere. When there's no place to get, anything's possible. And there's no place to get until there is. What do I mean by that in an enrollment conversation? There's no place to get until there is.
They share with you what it is that they need or are looking to go towards.
Yeah. If you've authentically, what's your name? If I've authentically heard Amaya from a place of like service, no outcome, no agenda, but just really heard from a place of service, and it occurs to me like, I could make a profound difference in Amaya's life and her family. Do you now see that I'm morally obligated now to have a place to get? But do you see how my place to get arrived from a place of service? I didn't come in with that. Really, I cringe when I think about the sales and enrollment conversations I used to have when I would show up, like, gosh, my wife will tell you, like, I love enrollment. Like, I love getting the credit card. It's so freaking fun to me. Like, the challenge of like, oh, I'm gonna make a sale, right? Like, I don't even care about the dollar amount. Do you know how many times though I inauthentically showed up to sales conversations already knowing what was best for them? And I had never even seen them, like literally or physically. I'd never really heard them. And I already know what's best for them. It's really actually really arrogant, egotistical. But if I've been with Amaya from a place of service and it occurs to me like I can really help her, I have an obligation to be like, Amaya, like, thank you for what you've shared. I need you to know, like, based on what you shared, I can help you and I can make a difference for you. And I want to tell you exactly how I would do it. You think people would be interested in hearing that from you if you really believe you can make a difference for them? So one of the things that I think really hurts us sometimes in an enrollment call is how we start it. Now, what did I say? What is enrollment? What's the first thing we talked about? What is really enrollment? Leadership. Okay, do you think a CEO would ever walk into a room, like on a Monday morning meeting, and just be like, all right, everyone, how was your weekend? Like, what do you want to talk about for this week? Have any of you ever kind of conducted an enrollment call a little bit that way? Like, hey, let's just chit chat it up, like, you know. And then you're kind of like awkwardly trying to get to like the conversation, like, oh man, how do I bring this up? Like, how do I squeeze it in, right? How do I make them feel interested? That's not enrollment, that's called being a wuss. And I've done it before. But what if we were just a leader? What if I get on the call with Amaya and I say, hey, Amaya, first of all, like after we exchange some pleasantries, right? We're like, how's the day? How's the weather? You know that? And I'm like, hey, Amaya, I want you to know what my intention is for our time together today. My intention is to make a massive difference for you and add value and clarity to your life. And the best way I know how to do that is to really dive into your story and learn about you, learn about what's important to you and where you want to go with your family and your life. And I'm going to make you a promise. If at any point in time in this conversation I feel like I could serve you and make a difference for you and help you get where you want to go, you can count on me to tell you that. I'll tell you exactly how I'd get you there and what it looks like to work with me. And if at any point in time I don't feel like I'd be the best fit for you, you can count on me to tell you that. How does that sound? Yeah. Do you realize the path? Like, you just have taken control of the conversation because you're the leader. And you've stated to her exactly what your intention is. Anyone, could you see yourself using that in your enrollment conversations? Like, frame up the call. Like, own the call. Be a leader in the call. And you guys, do you recognize the power of what we just did there? What else did we just do there with Amaya? By basically saying, look, if I can help you, I'm going to tell you, and if I can't help you, I'll tell you. But either way, I'm going to serve you. Yeah. Again, I have no place to get. Yeah. And do you not think that everyone shows up to an enrollment call a little bit like, oh, they're going to try to sell me something. Is this going to cost money? Is this going to be expensive? So in every enrollment situation we have, there's all this pre-built tension that comes into it that doesn't serve us. It's like the huge elephant in the room. And what most of us don't do is most of us try to pretend like the elephant's not there the entire time and just hope it goes well at the end when we ask for the sale. I'd rather just be like, hey, there's an elephant over there. Should we talk about it? And just get that out of the way so that we can have like a real conversation with each other. So we're not thinking about that the whole time. What I do by framing up the call is I take the elephant out of the room. I relieve all of the tension. She knows I'm going to make her an offer to sell her something if I think I can help her, and she knows I'm not going to if I don't think I can help her. It's just being super honest and super direct and super authentic, and it's just being a leader with no place to get. But do you see how much more powerful it is later in the conversation, Maya? Because of me framing that up, I tell you, hey, based on everything you've shared, remember the promise I told you at the beginning, like, I can help you. And here's exactly how I'm going to help you. So why else do we struggle with enrollment? So what I want to talk about is there's a difference between enrollment and enrolling. And I'm going to use my wife as an example, and it's a risk because she's here. So last night my wife and I went to, and it was amazing by the way, the Penguin ice cream, I think it's called, with like we are going back before this trip's over, I can tell you that. They make the most amazing ice cream sandwiches, for those of you wondering. And my wife tells me when we're leaving that she recognized a girl that was in there who she doesn't follow on Instagram or is a big Instagram follower. And I was like, why didn't you talk to her? Like, why didn't you go and introduce yourself? And he's like, well, it didn't even occur to me, right? Which is fine. And also, it's like, you don't have to go introduce yourself. It's okay if you don't. But part of what my wife, she thought about it more, she told me, she goes, yeah, part of it is like, I don't know what I would like, not that I'm there to enroll her into anything, but if I was, I don't even know what I'm there to enroll her into. I said, what if there's never anything you enroll someone into? What if you're just enrolling? And what I mean by that is, what if I went up to her and I just said, hey, I love what you put out on Instagram and I followed you for a long time and like, you know, you're an inspiration to me because I had this really new cool project called Family Brand that I'm building. And I really want to grow the Instagram influence like you've grown yours. And I just want to say thank you. Like, you're an inspiration. And what if she goes like, what's Family Brand? Then my wife could tell her about Family Brand if she wanted. Or she might not say anything. She might just say thank you. It's like, yeah, you're welcome. But I think sometimes what hangs us up from approaching people is the pressure of enrollment. But what if there's no such thing as enrollment? What if we're just always enrolling? But not from a place of like, you're a target and I got to sell you something. It's just like, I'm just always seeing there's opportunities to be enrolling, to connect with people. Or she could be great to have on the Family Brand podcast when we launched that. But my wife said that was the thing that kind of stopped her, was like, well, what would I enroll her into? It's like, well, what if we're not enrolling anyone into anything? We're just enrolling. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the mindset for enrollment. I want to stop, like, anyone have any questions or thoughts on that idea of how to frame up the call? Thank you.
Yes, just go over that. Yeah, did you say it? Just say that.
Framing up the call?
Yes.
Okay, so there's one other cool thing you can do. How many of you, if I said, like, who of you in here thinks like you're really clear on like what you want to be known for in this business? If you just take a stab at it, like, what I'm known for in this business is. Okay, what I'm known for in this business is taming the bully between the ears. And what I believe more than anything is, someone give me an I believe more than anything. What do you believe more than anything about this business? Okay, beyond the oils, right? Like your big vision, your big mission, what do you believe more than anything? Okay, I believe you can serve as big as you can envision it. And what I stand for is defeating the bully between your ears, right? So here's how I could use this with Amaya. Again, I would say, leadership. I'm gonna go anywhere you want to go, but like I'm gonna make sure that you are clear on like what my intention is. My intention is to serve you, to add value to you in this conversation. And I want you to know that what I stand for, what I'm known for more than anything, is helping people defeat the bully between the ears. And what I believe more than anything is that you can accomplish as big as you can achieve it. I kind of butchered that. You can serve as big as you can dream. So do you think it might be powerful to tell someone in an enrollment situation what you are known for and what you believe more than anything at the very beginning to start it off, so they get a sense of you? So there's this interesting thing that people are always like, so one of the things we help all of our clients get really clear on is what they want to be known for. Because once you're really clear on what you want to be known for, that becomes a thing you're accountable to, and you filter everything through that, right? If this is what I want to be known for, I need to make sure that all of my marketing, all of my messaging, all of my speaking, all of my webinars, it aligns with what I want to be known for. But it always happens in our group coaching where one client will be like, but Chris, how do you guys are helping me get clear on what I want to be known for, but how do I become known for that? I'm like, you ready? It's really complicated. Write this down. They're like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm like, you just start telling people that's what you're known for. They don't know any different, right? It's like this declarative, and you guess what happens every time I speak out into the world, this is what I'm known for. What do you think it does to me? It creates me to be more of that thing. See, that's this power of language that we don't often talk about. We just talk about language like selling, but like every time I speak language out into the world, it creates me into more of it. So I'm not going to let them make a decision or make a guess on what I'm known for. I'm going to tell them really boldly in the very beginning, my intention is to serve you and to make a difference for you. And the thing I want you to know more than anything up front is what I'm known for is really helping people take a stand for the thing they feel called to do in their life. And what I believe more than anything is I believe your story is the key to you creating the kind of income and impact you're capable of. So the best way I know how to serve you on this call is I want to dive into your life. I want to dive into your business. I want to find out where you want to go. I want to find out where you're stuck. And here's the promise I'll make to you. If at any point in time in this conversation, I know that I can serve you, you can count on me to tell you that. And I'll tell you exactly what it looks like to work with me, and I'll tell you exactly how I'd help you accomplish your goals. And if at any point in time in this conversation, I don't feel like I'm the best person to serve you, I'll tell you that, but I'm still gonna give you any ideas and serve you in any way I can. How does that sound? I've never had one person that's like, it doesn't sound that good. People are like, that sounds great. Because I've just given them permission to be free, right? I've just released any of this, like, we don't have to think about selling or not selling, just be with each other. Because what I'm really trying to do is I'm really trying to set a context and a space for connection. You guys heard of this idea of creating and holding space? Through words, we just created space for possibility, right? Through framing up the call, we just created space that connection can now happen. There's no weirdness in between us getting connected, right? There's no weirdness between us like being authentic with each other. Because we just released all of it. So this idea, though, of enrollment is sometimes I think that the distinction that I want to make is the difference between enrolling and selling. And what I mean by enrolling versus selling, when we sell, it's about us, but when we enroll, it's about them. And I want to make a further distinction about enrollment. And someone spoke to it earlier. What are we actually enrolling them into? Okay, a lifestyle change, wellness, bingo. So sometimes when I've taught enrollment, I don't explain that. I think people take, so you're talking, when you say enroll, you're talking about enrolling them into your thing. No, that's selling. What's your name? I'm talking about enrolling Holly into a vision of what she wants for her life and her family, and then helping her see that I'm going to get her to her own vision. The only thing I'm enrolling someone into an enrollment conversation is what they want most. Then my product or service is just the vehicle to get them there. And unfortunately, way too many of us are trying to make our product or service the hero. It's not the hero in the enrollment. It's just the vehicle. It's an awesome vehicle. It's an amazing vehicle. But what's important is their vision of what's possible for them in their life.
Before you can do all of that, you gotta enroll them into the trust between the two of you.
So one of the things that we talked about in the very beginning is after we framed the call, the very first, so we call it the enrollment narrative, because a lot of times we think of enrollment as like there's just our story and their story. And we see it like very myopically, like there's just these two little stories. An enrollment conversation actually has about 7 or 8 mini stories going on in it, which is why we call it a narrative, because a narrative is a series of stories. And if you understand the different stories that are taking place, you can understand how to navigate them. What's your name? So to Kelly's point, right after I frame up the call, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get them to tell me about their story. The most important story told in an enrollment narrative is their story, but it's not their story as it relates to your product or service. It's their story just of who they are as a human being. So if I was doing this with Kelly, right? So Kelly, role play with me. I've just framed up, right? I say, how does that sound? So Kelly, what I'd love to do before we like dive into anything else is like, I'd love to learn a little about you. So tell me about you.
I'm a mom of 3. I live in Heber City. I love to travel. I love to do service.
Okay, do you realize just how many nuggets she just gave me? Love, like, and again, I'm not like, I'm not already like, ooh, I'm gonna sell her something, but I know like what's capable in doTERRA. Do you think a business like doTERRA could allow her to travel? Do you think a business like doTERRA could allow her to make a more meaningful difference in the lives of her 3 children? Do you think doTERRA could allow her to serve while traveling through like healing hands and like in Days for Girls and like, do you realize just by asking one little question of like, hey, tell me about you? And so many of us are missing the opportunity to let someone like Kelly tell us who they are, because it's in the telling us who they are, they feel seen by us. So the thing that took me way too long to realize, and I had to learn it the hard way, is that people don't connect with us through our story, they connect with us through their own story. And most of us in an enrollment conversation are just not giving people the opportunity to really open up and tell us about who they are. But the more that you can get someone to share with you who they are, the more connected they feel to you. It's this crazy thing. Like, you're not even doing any of the talking. But the more they share, the more they trust, and the more they trust, the more they share. It's like this positive reinforcement. I've even had people before like, I can't believe I'm telling you all this, right? And it's in that, the more, and because what Kelly, when you share with me, what do you feel?
Like happy about who I am.
Yeah, you feel seen, you feel heard. Now, what else is interesting is how often in the world we live in today are people actually given the opportunity to be seen and like have someone genuinely interested in them and their story? Think about when the last time it happened to you. Like, human connection is a commodity, unfortunately, in the industry. Or sorry, it's a premium. Like, people go weeks without ever having one person that's genuinely, authentically interested in just who they are as a human being. And if you do that for people on an enrollment call. Now, you also have to be careful, because some people, it's been so long since they've been asked about them that it can be 2 hours before they come up for air, right? We also can't allow that to happen in an enrollment because we're leaders in it. So at some point in time, I'm going to transition them from their story into something else. But it's like, I really, truly believe I have no right to offer them something. I have no right to enroll them in anything if I don't know who they are, if I haven't seen them. And we all know this, right? Intellectually, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But very few people do it in enrollment calls. We're so excited to get to our thing that we're like stepping over this dollar to pick up a dime. The dollar is them. Like, the dollar is their story. It's who they are. So this idea that conversion happens at the point of connection. You can enroll people without any human connection. It just takes a lot longer. Generally, they're not as fun to work with. Any of you ever kind of convinced someone into this business? Like, you really kind of twisted their arm into it? I mean, they still had their own choice, but has anyone ever enrolled anyone into the business without a lot of connection, right? What were those people like to work with? Hard, non-responsive, they don't stay very long, a lot of work, headache. You can enroll people without human connection. It's totally possible. We see it all the time. It just takes a lot longer, it's a lot more effort, and they end up being really, really unfun, if that's a word, to work with. But if you enroll people through connection, they enroll faster, they're more committed from day one, and they're just more enjoyable to work with. And again, this idea of people are searching for connection now more than ever. So the next part in the enrollment narrative, right? I've asked Kelly a little about her story, right? So Kelly, I'm going to keep on this train with you. You cool with that? Kelly's like, why did I raise my hand? So at some point in time, I'm going to really politely cut Kelly off, if necessary, and insert myself back in. It's like, Kelly, thank you so much for sharing that, a little about you and about your family and what you love to do. It gives me a lot of context for who you are. Now what I want to talk about is where do you want to go? What's your goals? Yeah, so just tell me what's important to you? Where do you want to go in your business?
I want to build a school in Uganda.
That's amazing. Why is that important to you?
Because I just see there's a lot of opportunity there to make a difference. People who have very little opportunity, and I'd like to create something amazing.
And is that the ultimate dream, or is there something even beyond that? Once you build a school in Uganda, is there something else even more you want that's possible, or a dream for you and your family?
I'm just open to whatever God leads me to.
Okay, so now tell me what's not working? Where do you feel stuck sometimes in your business?
Question. So right now it's probably more of a time management issue.
Yeah, what does that look like? Why is that a challenge?
Because I wanted to create more sales, but I'm limited in what I can do. I can also long pretty big.
So what do you see as the cost of that?
The dreams are taking longer to happen.
So what I just did with Kelly there is I asked her, hey, okay, so where do you want to get? Now, Kelly, were you always clear that you wanted to build schools in Uganda, or if I had asked you that question? Okay. What would you have said before if I said, hey, Kelly, where do you want to get?
You know what? To be honest, I have created so many dreams because of doTERRA. I'm so grateful we have created so many extraordinary things that that's where I'm at right now. Like, what else is possible? What do I want to do? So I'm just in the dream creation mode right now.
Okay, so what's interesting is when you ask most people, and Kelly just said it, like when you ask most people, hey, where do you want to get? They don't actually tell you what's possible. They tell you what they think is possible. Can you guys see that there's a gap between what we think is possible and what's truly possible? But guess what we don't do in enrollment conversations? We don't expand the gap. We just ask them, like, what are your goals? Where do you want to get? And we stop there. Like, if I was motivated by just my goal or my dream, I would already have done it. But obviously that's not enough. So it's like, you have a real opportunity to help people get present to what's possible beyond what they think is possible. And that's leadership again. Leadership represents the difference between what they think is possible and what you know is possible. And when you can help someone start talking about what's truly possible, and they're like, wow, well, if you're asking me what my dream is, if you're asking me what I really would love would be this, what do you think happens for them? What's that like for them to have you helping them expand like what they can see as possible? Like, what does that feel like for them? Hope, freeing, inspiration. And who do you think they look to lead them from what they think is possible to like what's really possible? You, the leader, because you just help them expand it. It's really common that if the people who help us create our vision are the people that we want to follow to the promised land to actually make it happen. There's something really profound taking place in an enrollment conversation when you can help people expand their vision of what's possible and enroll them into their own vision. But then we've also got to come back down to reality and say, but what's not working? Where are you stuck? And again, that's not as powerful as the cost of it. So what I mean by that is, let's say that I walk into the gym, and I walk in because I know I want to lose 15 pounds. Do you think I walk into the gym already knowing that I want to lose 15 pounds? Or do I walk into the gym and I look at a bunch of healthy people on these workout machines and I'm like, I didn't know I needed to lose weight, but now that I'm in a gym, yeah, I could shave 15 pounds. No, it's like I already knew before I walked into the gym that I wanted to lose 15 pounds, right? Why might that be important to take into consideration when we ask people what's not working or where they're stuck? Why is that actually not that valuable of a question? Well, my experience has been, it's because people already know what's not working. What they don't know and haven't calculated is the cost of not doing something about it. And an example is when I went into that marriage counselor that I told you about. Like, when I think back on it, it's like, he kind of created this framework a little bit around enrollment because of what he did with me. So when he first asked me, he's like, basically he asked me some questions around like what my goals are, like where do you want to get? And I was like, well, I just want to survive. Like that's the place I'm at, like that's what I can see as possible. And what he did is he helped me see like way beyond that. He helped me see to like, well, that's what you think is possible, but you actually could be like best friends with your wife. You actually could have like an amazing marriage and an amazing family, an amazing relationship. You really could. And I was like, I couldn't even see that as possible. And then he brought me back down to reality around what wasn't working. But clearly what wasn't working wasn't enough for me to do something about it, or I would have done something about it. It wasn't until he started helping me get present to the cost of continuing on the way I was continuing. And I had never calculated the cost. Why? Well, I didn't know it was possible. Why else do you think we subconsciously don't calculate the cost in our lives? Too painful. Yeah. It's like, I'm cool with thinking about how my marriage isn't working. I'm not cool with thinking about like what it might cost me if it continues. Like, that's too painful. And when he said, okay, you just have to realize like the trajectory you're on, I just want you to imagine it's a Friday and you're dropping your kids off at your wife's house, but she's not there and the new dad comes out. So your wife's not even there and new dad takes your kids for the weekend. How's that feel? He's like, I want you to imagine the high school graduation when it's picture time And it's super awkward because you're like, well, did my new wife get in there with my ex-wife and her husband? It's like, is that weird for my kid? And like the pressure of that. And he just ran through these scenarios that were so painful to consider. And it became real to me really fast, the cost of what I was potentially about to do. See, we don't do things and we don't make changes because of what we can see as possible and because of what's not working. We take action and make changes when we see what's truly possible against what the cost is going to be if we don't do it. Does that make sense? That's what creates urgency in action. But again, sales training 101 is so lame because what it does is it says, okay, here's what you do in selling. You ask people where they want to go, you ask them where they're at, you help them see the gap, and then you sell your solution as the bridge. It's like, it's just not enough. People already see that. But if we can expand the gap of what's possible, we can deepen the gap of the cost, right? And it might be one of the most courageous things you do for another person is to actually have enough courage to help them see the cost. Because most of us aren't willing to look at it. So it might take someone else from the outside. Now, do you guys think that though could be a little bit bold? Might be a little bit scary to go to the cost with someone. But remember, there's no place to get. There's nothing to mess up. Anyone in this business, is anyone in this business got in because of the cost? Because they could see the cost? And that's why they got in? Holly, will you say? Here, let me give you this mic. Oh.
Can we share?
Yeah.
So I had my mentor ask me what if my end goal was a reality today, what would my life be like? But what would it be like if I never reached it? And I wrote for pages because it was so painful. Do you want me to share?
Yeah.
So we had 2 kids at the time, and we were living in a townhome, and we wanted to have another child. And my husband was a police officer, so pay raises don't come very frequently. And I didn't want to stay there. And I had big dreams. And realizing that I either needed to give up on those and just like kind of lose out and like realize that wasn't going to happen, which doesn't fit my personality because I have a lot of ambition, or like I was going to have to do something really uncomfortable. And so I just kept writing, and that has kept me going for a long time.
Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. Let's give her a hand. When you guys see that what Holly's mentor did is she helped Holly get really present to like what really the dream is and reminded her of it. And then up right against that, like helped her get really present to the cost of not taking action on that. And unfortunately, most of us show up to enrollments where we don't hold people accountable to going after what they really want. And we don't show them the cost of what's going to happen if they don't. And we let them linger between what they think is possible and their problem. And there's the potential, like the risk that we leave them stuck there forever. Like someday, someone's going to come along and actually have the courage and the faith and the love and the commitment for that person to be like, no, I'm not accepting your bullcrap answer about what you think is possible. We're going to talk about what's really possible. I'm also not going to accept your answer and your limiting beliefs around what's not working. We're going to get real with each other and talk about the cost, because I'm just not willing to let you not see this. Like I care too much about you to not let you not see this. Which, by the way, interesting part of the story, the first marriage counselor we went to never asked me anything about me. Never felt connected to him. Never felt seen by him. Never once asked me like what I really wanted and where I wanted to go. And never had the courage to like actually point out to me like what the cost would be if I didn't get there. Was just totally willing to allow me to just live in the margins and just like keep my life the way it was. So I don't know how we talk about enrollment. And I don't know how we talk about getting people to present to the cost and the possibility without talking about commitment. And look, there's been times where I've gone on enrollment calls with people and I can honestly say at the end, it's like I wasn't committed to them. I wasn't committed to what they wanted most in their life. And I wasn't committed to them to point out the cost and have a difficult conversation and the uneasy conversation. I'm like, look, I want to serve you, but like, there's a cost to you continuing on the way you are. There's a cost to you continuing to like not. There's a cost to you continuing to ignore this. But if I do show up from that committed place, what do you think the person in that enrollment conversation with me, how do you think they experience me? If I show up really committed, what's their experience of me? Trust? They feel cared about. They have faith in you. They feel empowered. How many of you, like me at times, have been like, man, if I could just get through this awkward, painful like enrollment process and just get that out of the way, then get to the fun stuff, like starting to work with them, right? Then I'll really show up as a committed leader, right? And so many of us kind of view this enrollment thing and selling like this necessary evil, and like, it doesn't feel good to me, it doesn't feel good to the customer, but I got to get through it. But this was really confronting for me the day I realized that how I show up to an enrollment conversation is me demonstrating to that person what they can count on me if we work together. My commitment and my leadership and who I really am is actually fully on display in the enrollment conversation. Meaning, if I show up to the enrollment conversation really timid and really afraid to like hold them accountable and enroll them into their vision and really afraid to ask them the cost, guess what? They can count on me when we work together. Same thing. I'm not going to be the person that holds them accountable what they said they're going to do that month. I'm not going to be the person that reminds them of their dream. I'm not going to be the person that reminds them of the cost of not going for it. Because I can't, it's not like I can show up weak to the enrollment conversation and be like, okay, but if we get through this, then I'm going to be really powerful and committed. It's like who you're being, show up to the enrollment conversation, is you demonstrating what came from you. I was just like, man, I want to show up committed because I want people to experience me that way. I don't want there to be any difference in their minds from who I am in the enrollment conversation to who I am when we work together. Like when Gordon got on, you guys, the marriage counselor looked me in the eyes and looked me and my wife in the eyes, and we're sitting on this couch, but not next to each other. And he just looked at me and he's like, look, dude, I believe in you. Like, I believe in you. And I believe that you can create anything you want in your life, and you can create the most amazing marriage, and you create the most amazing family. And like, I'm here and I'm committed to you to make it happen. It's like I was so desperate to have someone see me. I was so desperate to have someone be committed enough to me to like have a hard conversation with me, hold me accountable. Like, because you know what was interesting is Gordon wasn't the only person I talked to about what I was struggling with. I talked to tons of people, and most people, and it was still like, look, I know that I'm 100% responsible for my life. I get that. But I still interacted with a lot of people that just let me like exist in those margins that would just keep me there forever. They would buy into my story. Oh yeah, that must be tough, man. I feel really bad for you. Yeah, that sucks. It's like we're not serving people by letting them live between what's not working and what they think is possible. Like we serve people by going into the margins. Like that's where leadership exists. And I'll just be forever grateful to a guy like Gordon who's cared enough about me. I just don't know the way to say it, was just committed enough to like be with me. And it doesn't mean that everyone enrolls. Like we don't need any of our enrollments to come from any one person. We're showing up to serve everyone, and like we just trust that we do that with faith. God, the universe, whatever you believe, like it knows you need to provide for your family. Like you're going to be taken care of. Like from this place of abundance. So once we've helped them get present to what's really possible, we've also helped them get present to the cost. Which, by the way, who do you think we need to enroll first in all of this? How many of you think you could benefit from doing the possibility and the cost exercise for you? Okay, we're actually going to give you some time right now and play a little bit of music to do that. So I want you to write down, like, take what you think is possible and then say, but what could be really possible for me in my life? And then against that, we're going to write, and what's the cost if I don't do it? Does that work? We're going to get everyone enrolled into their own vision right now.
Okay. Who wants to share with us? No alligator arms either, like, oh, he didn't see me. Okay. We'll get a mic too. Tell us your name.
I'm Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Okay, what'd you come up with like, the dream? Like, what's possible?
I could be able to travel anywhere I wish to and anywhere I felt I needed to be. I could be fully available to my children when they needed me most. I could help them with their biggest concerns. I could show them a path to how to live their dreams by living the example. I could have the time to heal fully and work on myself whenever I needed it. I could serve and give whenever I felt impressed to do so without having to worry about the cost. I could live each day as my most authentic self. And I'm doing my first year of single momming right now.
Good for you. That's amazing. So here's what I would encourage you to do, Jeff. First of all, do you do any affirmations in the morning? Meditation, like?
No, I run to work at warehouse.
Okay. On your way to work, or whenever you can do it, it would take you just as much time as you just did there. Take all of those statements and turn them into I am doing statements. See, like, you've got to start envisioning that like it's already, like you're already giving gratitude for those things being accomplished. You guys heard that exercise before? It's like, I'm not giving gratitude for what I have today. I mean, I am, but I'm really grateful for what I'm going to create as though it's already been created. So that's the first thought that I have. One of the things I love is like, my kids see me going after my dreams. My wife and I talk about this a lot with our business family brand that we started, which is kind of the campfire effect for families. And it's like, I really believe one of the most powerful things, like one of the most powerful examples we can set for our children is to like, go after what we want. Whatever that looks like for us, right? But for that to become real, right? This dream, it's like, yeah, it's already real for me. Like I've already accomplished it, I just now get to carry it out. And what's crazy about affirmations, any of you guys studied affirmations and read about it? If you positively or negatively, if you say something to yourself over and over, 25 days in a row, do you know what it does? It literally releases proteins or new neurons in your brain. And it takes us, and how many of us religiously do affirmations in the morning? Okay, Jessica, what about the cost?
I will probably lose my house, and I will stay working in a warehouse. Very nice people in this warehouse, but I really don't want to be there all the time. And I could, well, there's a really long list. I just was still working on that list, and I didn't get to the other list yet. But.
Okay, but I want you guys to imagine something right now. Who enrolled Jessica in here? What's your name? Tana. And you may have done this when you enrolled Jessica, but let's replay the enrollment conversation, right, with Jessica.
friend to call, you've really gotten to know her, and you've asked her where she wants to get, right? Let's say Tana gives you kind of like, in my experience, if you ask her where she wants to get, you say like, oh, I'd love to get out of the warehouse. It's not going to be with her, right? So you've got to like, remember, you can't just let her hang there. You've got to be like, oh, what do you really want? You're on the notebook when he starts screaming at the girl. He's like, what do you want? I feel like sometimes that, right? Because people won't tell you. It's like, what do you really want? No, seriously, what do you really want? And let's say you did that. And then the kid just goes like, what's the cost of you not getting this? Well, the cost is like, I'll lose my home. The cost is like, I won't, my kids won't see me back my dreams. The cost is I'll be stuck in this forever. What do you feel as she describes to you the difference between what her dream is and what the cost could be?
For the record, Tana did everything right.
But my point is,
You know, God did, and I went a different direction for a while, and I'm back because God's like, well, I think you like didn't understand. Let me clarify. I just said be careful and watch what you're doing, and
That's awesome.
And so we're refocusing.
but the point I want to make is like, as the enroller, when someone tells me the cost, what do you think that might create in me? Oh my gosh, it's like, do I want them to experience that cost? No, like see, part of why we want to know the cost is not just to help them get present to it, but I want to be present to it. Part of why we want to help them get present to their dreams isn't just for them, it's like, I want to get present to that. It's almost like this, oh my gosh, like that cannot happen under my watch. Like you're not going to lose your house. You're not going to stay stuck in that factory. You're not going to, right, not have anything to do with it. So it actually creates you, by hearing their cost, it creates you into the leader that they kind of need you to be to lead them. You get enrolled in it. Like even me, I'm like, man, like Jessica, I mean, I don't even know that much about the business, but let's do some three-way calls. Like let's enroll some people tonight, right? Like I feel that towards you because it's like I care about you and your family. And I care about you getting out of that warehouse. Because how many of us have a story like Jessica's, where in our own way we've been stuck in a warehouse, wherever that was. And sometimes it was in our minds, sometimes it was in a job we did. Right? How many of us have had dreams of like I can get there really quickly with Jessica and be called to serve her because like, yeah, I've been there. But I never get the chance to even get like really committed to serving her if I don't see her and hear her. Thanks, Jessica. Who else?
Thank you.
Right over here.
My name's Raynell.
Hi, Raynell.
What is possible is financial success, stability, travel, independence, self-esteem, and to own my own home again and help others.
It's amazing. Okay, what's the cost for you, Raynell?
Living off of Social Security, never having enough, worrying that I can't take care of myself, no stability, no security, dependence on others.
Thank you for having the courage to share.
Was you uncomfortable?
I lost my husband like 5 years ago, and so it's been a big adjustment, and you're on your own, and it's just you, and I mean, I live with my daughter, but it's not what I want to do the rest of my life. I love her, but it's not where, I mean, it's not where they need me, and it's not where I need to be. Yeah. And I know that. I just can't, you know, I can't, as Nancy, I can't. I can do anything I want. I'm not doing, I'm not able to get people to see what this can do for them and what we have to offer. Maybe I'm too passionate about it. I don't know what I really, one of the kind of people that wants to just, I want to just, you know, want to share, but you know, it's like when they don't get it, or I then I get down on myself because I didn't get through to them. And I feel like I did them a great disservice because they didn't get it. And they didn't get this life-changing, life-blessing oils and stuff in their life to help them.
Thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you this question now. Do you find that sometimes because you just care so much and you want to share so much that you overshare?
Oh yeah, I'm the dog.
Yeah.
I'm the playground for her. I'm sorry. For lack of a better way to put it.
That's awesome. Who else in here has ever been guilty of like throwing up all over somebody, right? In an enrollment conversation. Now here's what's interesting though, now. You have to like, don't beat yourself up over it, because the reason why, I call it like my favorite term around direct selling enrollment is show up and throw up. And everyone's been guilty of it, right? And none of us want to do it, but it comes from a really good place. It's like, I want you to see it so bad. I want this for you so bad that I want to just share. But here's what I want you to picture what's happening. Because I think there's actually some tactics, right, for you. Because, yeah, sure, there's some things in this enrollment narrative that is like mission-driven and connection, but there's also some just like tactics that are also useful to follow. I want you to picture like in an enrollment narrative, it's like this circle, okay? And in this circle, we can go anywhere we want within this circle, right? Because there's space. And here's what I want you to imagine. Every time you share in the enrollment conversation, it fills up space. Right? So you, them. So every time I share, it fills up space, which leaves less of what for them? Space, but space to what? Space to share. Space to what? Space to connect. Space to listen. Space to see what's possible. Interestingly enough, every time they share, the circle gets bigger and it creates more space for us. You've got to stop talking so freaking much in enrollment conversations. That's another way of saying it. Amen. He or she who talks the least is in control of leading the conversation. He or she who talks the least is in control and leading the conversation. So picture this like an edge of a cliff. Anyone just shared someone right off the cliff? Right? Right? And they're almost like, okay, that was really interesting, but like I've literally got to go home and take a nap and an Advil and like think about this. And you're probably like, well, do some past tense instead of the Advil, and then call me tomorrow, right? But like we're sharing people right out of the business. Can you see that like I can see what's possible for me if you create the space for me to step in and see what's possible? Because it's in space that like anything's possible. It's when there's no space I start to feel like this. And that's what we do to people on sales and enrollment conversations. We don't even realize we're doing it, or in oil classes, or sampling, anything. Anyone ever had that like rare experience where you granted your child space, didn't have all the answers for them and weren't telling them, and they like walked into it and like had this like really deep conversation and shared things with you, and you're like, oh my gosh. That's because you granted your child space to do it. And it's in that space they can share. It's in that space they can think. It's in that space they can dream. It's in that space they can see. But when there's no space, they feel so limited. And so Renelle, I do this, I used to do this all the time too, but it was from such a good place. And so I think if you take that same passion and that same commitment and that same vision, right, but we give them more of an opportunity to share, right, just kind of like what I've been talking about, and really limit, right, how much we're sharing, just that one thing alone would change the dynamics of a lot of enrollment conversations, not just in this industry, but in any industry. And if you ever start to find yourself oversharing, just remember, like, oh, yeah, like, what's really possible and where they see possibilities when I create a lot of space for them. Who here is on Renelle's team? Okay, when you hear Renelle share what she shared, does it make you more committed to one of her team members to serve her, to not experience that cost and achieve that vision, that possibility, right? So just maybe a cool exercise you guys could do with your teams. I think there's a lot of people in this business
that are actually in it, but have never gotten enrolled into it. Like until we help them see what's really possible, and until we help them see the cost, they're not enrolled in this business. They're in it. So I think sometimes, any of you agree that some of your greatest enrollments might actually be to take place with the people who are in your organization? I'm not even talking re-enroll them. I'm talking like go and enroll them for the very first time. That's really powerful. And then use that as a determining factor as to who you're going to really lock on to and go build with. One of the things that I love about the enrollment narrative in an enrollment conversation like this also allows me to see who's really committed to getting to what's possible and who's really committed to avoiding the cost. I don't want to spend time and waste time with someone that's not interested in going to those extremes. I love them. I'll do anything I can to serve them. I just can't spend a lot of time with them. So Holly, how long have you been in the business? How long were you in the business before you had that experience around like the possibility and like the cost of not getting there? Yeah. Okay. Do you, I don't know, who in here experiences Holly as someone that does the work? That knows Holly? Okay. Who in here experiences Holly as someone they would lock onto it, like, and go build it? But part of my point in that is, can you see how I don't really know who's super committed unless I help, unless we have the possibility of the cost conversation? Because if someone's like if I really am in the notebook scene and I'm screaming and what do you want? They're like, what's the cost of not getting there? I don't know, it wouldn't be that bad. My life's okay. That is not someone I'm going to battle with, like a lock in arms with. Like, I'm going to work with hungry people. People that are hungry for growth and impact and change in their life and want to do something about it. Any of you ever had the experience, though, of spending a lot of time with someone and realize, like, gosh dang, I probably just wasted like 2 years of my life I'll never get back because they were never going to build the business anyways. Yeah, and you know what? You might have some animosity towards that person, rightfully so, and you're 100% to blame for it. Because you never got them in a position to really be enrolled. You never really put them in a position to really see if they were enrolled. Okay, anyone else? Possibility in the cost exercise? I feel like we need some mail. Like, I don't think one guy has spoken, which is really not typical. I can see he wants to raise his hand back there. I can see an alligator arm starting before it even came up. I can spot him. Sometimes people look at me and I'll be like, you, and they're like, how'd you know? I was like, I just know you were gonna raise your hand. My wife was like, hey, raise your hand. It was her. She was putting out the vibes.
Yeah. I think a lot of mine are similar. I think with COVID happening, I've been able to work from home, and I'm with my children 24/7 now. So I get have breakfast, lunch with them, help them go to school, see when they get home. And so I think just being able to come home full time and just really, build our own business, not work for other places or for someone else is the biggest driver. I've got my own like hobbies that I'd love to do more of, like into like greater extent. But yeah, I think a lot of that just kind of revolves around our family and some of the goals of just, investing in our kids and their well-being.
How many kids you guys have?
We've got 3.
Awesome. So then what's the cost for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cost is, going back to that 9 to 5, spending 3 hours commuting in a car every day, not being as like financially stable as we'd like to be, kind of having money worries and then yeah, just having some of those dreams that I want to achieve and not being able to do so.
It's amazing. Thanks for sharing. Let me tell you, I want to hear from your wife.
Well, I just want to say one thing we were just saying when we were doing exercise was that, waiting till 65 to live our life, right? Like that's the real cost. It's like, wait, like, well, someday we'll do all that.
Yeah.
Like that's the big cost. Wait until then and then, I don't know, like it's aside in some way.
Yeah, what would it be like for you to have your husband home and full-time in the business with you?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much why we're here today. Like having him home just from COVID has completely changed my life. And I'm like, you can't go back ever.
Awesome. So, I promise you, yeah, that'll wear off a little because when I started working from home all the time, I was like, you got to go get it in the office. At least a couple days a week.
Yeah,
that's what they keep telling me, but I mean, it's been like 6 months and still sitting next to each other, right?
Yeah, no, I'm joking. It is awesome. It was funny though, there'd be times where it just, yeah, you just like, I'm in doing an enrollment call and my wife's like, hey, can you come help me hang this thing up? And I'm like, I'm not here, remember? She's like, oh no, but you are, I can see you. And I'd be like, hey, can you make me lunch real quick? She's like, oh, remember, I'm not here. I'm like, no, I should hear you guys to do it. You're here. Right? It's like this funny dynamic, right? And kids just have no regard for personal space. So they don't care if you're on the biggest enrollment call of your life. And when I hear you guys say that, it's just like, oh, I want that for you so bad. But again, like if I'm your leader, if I'm on your team, it's like, do I want it for you bad enough to be enrolled in it myself? Like I can't do it for you, but am I committed enough to you to like, if that's what you say you want, then like you can count on me to show up as a powerful leader to hold you accountable to getting it. And you can count on me to call you out when you're not. And I would encourage you guys, just like I shared with Jessica, don't say like our goal is to be home from a 9 to 5 work full time. In your daily affirmations, it's like, I am so grateful that I was able to leave my 9 to 5 job. I'm so grateful that I'm working from home full time. Like, you start giving thanks in the present for what's already been accomplished. Does anyone do that? Yeah, and then one day you wake up and you're almost like, whoa, it happened. Like, it's really real. Like, thanks for sharing. Okay, one more. Possibility and the cost. I'd just love to hear from someone else who did the exercise. Alligator hand. Yeah, there you go. It's like that. It's like when the bill comes at dinner, right? You're with all your friends, like everyone has alligator arms. Like, oh, I can't grab your bill.
So I just want freedom from emotional pain, from financial bondage, from false beliefs, from man-made limits, freedom to create and empower.
Amazing. I love the freedom thing. Might be a huge clue for you too, in like what you want to be known for in this business. Remember how I said like in being enrollment calls, like what I'm known for in this business is like helping people achieve freedom. And what I believe more than anything is I believe it's absolutely possible to have the freedom to live life the way you want to live it or something like that.
I love that. Very well done.
Okay, the cost for you. Then one more over here.
The cost is just continuing on a path of being okay, but I guess having to put too much effort into feeling joy. I feel like it's just so much work to feel happy when I should be happy. And so I just know there's more. I know there's more there, and I'm not afraid of. Well, yes, I am. The work to get it, but I'd rather work for that now and then have the feeling of freedom in all areas because I did the work now.
It's awesome. Tell me, did you say your name again?
Camille.
Camille.
Yeah.
Camille, you actually said, I want to acknowledge you for something you said really powerful. My wife taught me this from a podcast she listened to. How many of you have not taken action on something that really called to you that you really wanted because you didn't know how? How many of you have ever had that excuse or say, well, I don't know how? You know what's crazy about saying I don't know how? Is unless we start doing it, we won't know how. That's like the crazy, it's like, well, I just don't know how to do it, so I'm not going to do it. But if I don't do it, I won't know how to do it. So I'll just not do it, and then I'll sit and think about all the time that I'm not doing it. It's just like this like vicious cycle, right? And the reality is like the map appears when the car's in motion. Like you don't know how unless you put it in drive. But what my wife said is what's really true anytime you find yourself saying I don't know how is what's really true is like I'm afraid. But see, like admitting you're scared of something, you're afraid of something is really powerful because you can do something about it. But what can you do about like I don't know how? It's like, well, I guess you're where you're at. Like, that's your answer. Yeah, Google, right? I was just about to make a really bad charged political joke, but I won't. But I think that's like powerful. It's like, and when you're looking at this idea of where I want to get my dreams, it's like never say I don't know how because it's actually not true. It's never true. It's just like, yeah, it might scare me a little bit, but I can overcome that. I can also overcome fear. It's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Someone else had a hand up over here.
I just wanted to add a second witness to freedom. When I came into this room, I was so happy. Like I wanted to cry. To see all these people together right? And not afraid and not frantically wiping down the podium or wiping down the table or yelling at a kid to put their mask on. I work in the public school system. If we get more people sharing and sharing, like empowering other people, these oils are empowering. I had one woman on my team who I taught quite a while back, and she's been using the oils. And when this whole COVID thing came, she was so afraid, and she was wearing a mask everywhere and staying in her car, and I had to bring things out to her car and go into the store for her. But when she learned like what she could do to take charge of her own health, it was empowering. And to know that you can take care of your kids, you can take care of yourself and your family, and we don't have to live in fear, that's empowering. And talking about the future, what happens if I don't? That, to me, it's like there's no freedom for me to travel. There's no freedom for me to go to the store. All these things that are being placed upon us, like with the whole, right now it's just a mask and disease debate, but eventually there'll be like the vaccine, and what if I don't want to take that? It's hurt my kids before, and I do not want that to happen again. And I don't want it to happen to other kids. So I think like this, like talking about this is just so empowering and exciting, and it's amazing to see what we can do. Like me as one person, like Holly as one person, she taught me. And then I've been able to teach other people, and it's just amazing to that effect. So just wanted to add that.
Thanks for sharing. What's your name?
Amy Moore.
Amy, thank you for sharing. That's amazing. And here's what's interesting about this idea of fear is like, especially again, given the times now, one's like, well, I don't know if they've had some financial hardships, and I probably can't ask them for money right now. I can't sell my kid. I can't give them a sample. I can't do this. Anyone ever really like had someone like this just pop in your mind, like, I feel really called to go connect with them. But then before you ever go connect with them, you already do the enrollment conversation in your head, and they say no, and you're like, oh, they probably, all right, yeah, I'm not gonna ask them this. It's like, who are you to like make their enrollment decision for them, right? So here's what I believe about fear. And I don't think this gets talked enough in this world of story. So most of you probably have a context that my background in Campfire Effect was kind of built on the foundation of helping entrepreneurs create their story and their message. And then the enrollment narrative has come along a little later because so many of our clients said, we want to learn how to sell like you sell. Like the way you sold us, it felt really good. Which anytime someone tells me it felt good to buy from us, I'm like, you want to feel better? Buy some more. But so many of our clients kept telling us, like, it feels good to buy from you. How do you do that? Teach us that. So we created the enrollment narrative, which is what I'm sharing with you here today. But one of the things I don't think gets talked enough in this world of storytelling is we only talk about story and messaging as it relates to growing our businesses. We don't talk about storytelling as it relates to the stories we tell ourselves that really live us. And my fear is we have so many people today that spend so much of their story in the pain of the past around guilt and shame. And they spend so much time in the story of the future around fear and anxiety that they have very little time left over to create the one place life's actually happening, which is now. Life is only ever happening now. Like, if we could just get there for a minute around this idea of fear. Like, the past is a made-up concept, largely by like people who want us to continue to feel guilty and like anxious about it so they can keep selling us stuff. And the fears in the future is a made-up concept, like largely by marketers to keep us buying things. Tell me when you're going to be in the past again. Okay, tell me when you're going to be in the future. So, well, tomorrow will be in the future. No, tomorrow you'll just be in the present. 3 years from now, you'll just be in the present. If you can just wrap your mind around this, it'll create so much freedom for you that like the past and the future are not real. Yeah, sure, they happen and they've shaped us, but like life is only ever happening right now. And when you think about that, like there's nothing to be afraid of. Like in this room right now, in this room, is there anything to be afraid of right now here, right now in this moment, this second in this room? Is there anything to be afraid of? What's that? That was flying over my head. That's in the past. It was flying over my head. I only have things to be afraid of in the future. I only have things to have guilt and shame around from the past. Like right now, I'm just here with you, amazing people in this room. Like that's what's real. Like this is happening.
You know what else is real? When you're sitting there with another human being on an enrollment call and you're like getting to know them and you say, that's real. Like that's in the present. And in that place, in the present, when two people are connected, anything's possible. Amen. I love the amens and the hallelujahs. It's like I haven't been to a physical church in a while, so we're like, this is like, take me to church, right? Okay. On this next slide, one of the things that's really important to do in the enrollment too, so again, just to recap, we framed up the call, right? Told them we can help. If we can help them, we're gonna tell them. If we can't, we're gonna tell them. We've gotten to know their story. We've talked about the possibility and the cost. And now, can you see that at this moment, if I've really helped someone get present to what's possible and I've asked them about the cost, can you see that now I would probably have a really good idea if I can help them or not? It's at this point where it's like, I can make a difference for this person. How many of you on your enrollment calls, when you know you can help someone, you just look them in the eye and you just boldly tell them like, look, I can make a difference for you. I can help you. In my experience, very few people do that. How good would that feel, right? I want to be enrolled that way in anything I'm doing. I want someone to boldly tell me like, look, I can help you. I can make a difference for you. Okay, so let's say we've done that. Well, if we tell them, look, I can help you, I can make a difference for you, and they say, okay, great. What do they ask? What are they wondering next? What would be the next natural thought that we have? How? People who can't see where they're going are going to stay where they're at. If I can't see where I'm going, I'll just stay where I am. So when we tell them we can help them, the next part of this is like, and here's where we're going to go, right? Here's where I'm going to take you. Any of you feel like you do a really good job of that in enrollment? You don't just enroll them into that thing there today, you also really paint the picture of here's where we're headed. Here's where we're going over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Here's what your life's going to look like. In my experience, if that thing that we're enrolling them into isn't super clear on where we're headed, it's just too easy for me to just stay where I am. Does that make sense? So what could we share with them? This idea of like where we're going. What would be some words or some vocabulary that we might use around where we're going?
Lifestyle change.
And what would be a way to help them start to imagine or envision the lifestyle change that we're going to create with them and for them? Yeah, I just want you to imagine what it's going to feel like when you feel completely empowered to care for the health of your children with confidence. I want you just to imagine what it's going to feel like when you leave the warehouse. Like I want you to picture the day you're walking out of the warehouse. Do you see how that might be enrolling, like to enroll people into where we're going? Someone had a hand up over here. Eric? Is it Eric?
Yes, it is. Yeah, thank you. We could ask them. I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry, I kept talking.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, we could ask them a question of, wouldn't it be nice if?
Totally. Wouldn't it be nice if, right? Now they've already told us what's possible, but again, it's not like that. We can just have that conversation one time and it's enough. Like we've got to show them where we're going. And by the way, guys, like it just, one more over here.
Just to speak to that, explaining about the cost to them, right? And part of this enrollment conversation, I had a girl I was working with who has epilepsy and a lot of severe issues in her life, and she would just cry to me and she said, she was sick and tired of being tired, right? Sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And then she, she had this beautiful experience with the oils, and she's like, okay, well, I think I just want like 1 bottle of lemon and 1 bottle of Adaptive. And I just talked to her on the phone and I was just like, honey, okay, but you just told me you're done. Like you are tired of living this way. You see that discrepancy there. And she's like, whoa, yeah. And I said, you need to make that investment in yourself. And it's because I love you. And she ended up buying $600 of the most powerful experience.
if you invested in what you really needed for you and your family, this is what could be possible, right? It's like, here's where we're gonna go. But it's so powerful, like, because sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to be bold. Someone's like, wait, this doesn't make sense. You just got done telling me, like, this is where you want to go. And then you just got done telling me, like, the cost. And now you're saying, like, you can't afford this, or you don't have time for this, or it's like, what is that? It doesn't have to come from a place of pushy, right? But I also feel like way too many of us, like, let people, like, just, yeah, it just wouldn't work for me. I can't afford it. Oh, okay. Well, let me know when you can. Call me. It's like, and by the way, when someone tells you no, to Jessica's point where she told Tana no, you guys have to just realize that no is just one of the ingredients in the recipe of an enrollment. If we just stop being afraid of no, we see no as finality. I just see no as like, oh, they just threw another ingredient in the recipe that we get to work with. Like, it's not no. Because what's behind their no usually really? Yeah, just afraid of something. So I know we're not going there quite yet, but you want to know one of the most powerful things that you can do when someone has an objection in an enrollment conversation? Come from a place of just pure curiosity. Like, you're not threatened by their objection. If someone's like, I can't afford that, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. I just don't think I would have time for this. That's really interesting. Tell me more about that. Right? Because by being curious, what am I still creating in the conversation? A conversation. I'm still creating possibility. And what I usually find is whatever they tell me on the surface level, like I can't afford it or I don't have time, is never actually the thing. It's something deeper. But yeah, we can work with that. Now, again, I'm way more committed to do this if I know that I can help them. Right? So there's just this power in, again, helping people see where we're going to go with them, telling them that we can help them, and yeah, they might have objections, right? So that's where I want to talk about this next piece, is it never depends. And what I mean by that is I think sometimes you're really susceptible, especially in a business like yours, when we're actually getting to the enrollment. How many of you have ever had someone ask you, like, okay, I want to get started, like, what should I do? Anyone ever had that? Like, okay, I want to do something, I want to buy some oils, I want to get started, what should I do? Anyone ever had anyone ask that? Have any of you ever responded like, well, it depends? Why would we say it depends? If someone wants to get started, right? Why might we say like, well, you know, and they're like, how do I get started? Why would we maybe say it depends? And stuff? Whether we use that phraseology or something like it. Yeah, so it could be that we haven't really done a good job of like the cost and the possibility. So sometimes that's like where it's like, hey, I want to move forward. Then, well, it depends because I don't know enough about your. But if we follow the enrollment narrative correctly, right, we should really know that already. Why else might we say it depends? Did you have your hand up? What do you think it communicates to someone if they're like, how do I get started? Like, well, it depends. Yeah. It's like I don't go into like a Home Depot and I'm like, hey, I want that washer. What's it cost? And the guy's like, it kind of depends. It's like, no, this is kind of the cost. Like, but do you see how we, like, I don't know if this is actually a real word. Do you see how we like delegitimize ourselves as a real business? Because any other real business, it wouldn't depend. But the reason why we say it depends a lot of times is we really are trying to serve them. We're trying to customize something for them, right? But I can tell you, it communicates and conveys a lot more confidence when someone's like, so what does it look like to get started? It's like, oh, I can tell you exactly what it looks like to get started. This is how we start. What does that convey when you tell them exactly what it looks like to get started? Certainty. I've done this before. I'm a real business. I'm a leader. I know my business. A lot of entrepreneurs, in an effort to want to serve someone, will be like, well, it depends. We can customize. We can. Look, customization is your worst enemy in selling. Personalization is great. Customization and personalization. Yeah, I could personalize the oils to you, right? Someone says, like, what does it look like to get started with you? I can tell you exactly, it's this kit. Now, I can show them how we're going to personalize that kit to them. But see, that's different than like a customized offer, and it's different every single time. It's also like you're going to get so much more confident in enrolling when you know what you're enrolling them into.
Now, how many of you though, sometimes you're like, okay, I've got to get them started on the oils, and then within 30 days, they've got to be a serious builder, and then it's, right? It's like we put this, it's like trust the process too. Like enroll them into like what is good for them at that point in time, so here's where we're getting started. How many of you that are diamond or above started with a love of the oils and like no desire to even build a business? A lot of people. I'm not saying it's wrong to start by wanting to build a business, but if that's where someone wants to start, it's okay to let them start there. Because more than likely, they're going to love the oils so much that they're actually going to be able to like not talk about it. But it's also okay to start with someone that wants to build a business, like start with them there. But if you have someone, how many of you already know if someone's like, I definitely want to start with the oils, you would be like, oh, here's how we get started. And you also have the scenario already if someone's like, I want to get started with a business, you are like, here's how we get started. And if you don't, I would have those ones that work for you because they're looking to you as leadership. It's like, okay, what's next? And if we convey any element of like uncertainty, like, well, hold on real quick, I'm gonna go talk to my upline. They're gonna be like, wait, what? And I don't know if like you're gonna actually be able to lead me to where I wanna go. Okay, this last line, we should work together. Every bit of like, trying to think if this is a true statement. I was about to say, I don't know that I've ever made $1 in my life that didn't involve enrolling. From commercial real estate to financial advisor to a plethora of like endless jobs and careers. But you want to know what my number one like enrollment line is, like how I invite them to work with me, and I'm pretty good at enrollment. I literally at the end, I'll recap and I'll say, so yeah, based on everything you shared with me again, I know that I can help you. I know I can make a difference for you. We should work together. So I've asked for almost every sell I've ever made in my life. People are like, no, it's got to be more complicated than that. I know, I kind of laugh, I say it with energy, and I'm like, we should work together. What do you see in that? Maybe you don't like it, maybe you love it. Like, why do you think there's something for me in that, like, we should work together?
Like support.
Yeah, support, acceptance. But if you think about it, it's actually pretty direct though. It's pretty bold. It's like, hey, we should work together. Now, energy in this one, because can you tell me the difference between like, we should work together versus like, hey, we should work together. Sometimes I'll play with it and I'll say like, hey, why don't we work together? Now again, I reminded them like, look, I know I can help you. I know I can make a difference for you. Why don't we work together? It's like this. And sometimes I'll also add to that. Man, I just want you to know the enrollment narrative works. This isn't something I teach and then I do my enrollment calls completely differently. So we actually had someone in this business, I won't say their name, because I'm pretty sure they're in this organization, reach out to me through my website, said, hey, I'm a Blue Diamond in doTERRA. I've heard good things about you. I just want to have a conversation. Even kind of like preemptively telling me up front, don't try to sell me anything because I'm not going to buy, but I just want to have a conversation. I was like, yeah, let's have a conversation. And 45 minutes later, she enrolled in our biggest coaching package. And she's already started a challenge in her community based off of her first session with our head coach. And you know what I did? I showed up and I said, hey, I know a lot about doTERRA. I love doTERRA. I love the business. I said, I'm happy to be on this call with you today. And my intention is to serve you and add value to you. Told her what I'm standing for, told her what I'm known for, said, hey, if there's any point in time in this conversation I can help you, you can count on me. I'm going to tell you how I can help you. I'm going to enroll you. And if I don't think I can help you, I won't. And I asked her, I was like, yeah, tell me about you. Learned a lot about her and her family. Asked her about her goals, asked her about her dreams, asked her about what wasn't working, asked her about the cost. Now, here's a really powerful question when you ask someone about the cost. When you're asking someone what's working and the cost, ask them, how are you working on this? How long have you been struggling with this? Holly, in your case, how long had it been? Yeah. Like how long had you felt like kind of stuck? When people hear themselves say that out loud, and that's what happened to this person, I almost said their name. When I asked like, what's the cost and how long are you working on that? The person was like, oh my gosh, like, I've been actually working on this for 7 years trying to solve this.
I've been trying to figure out my story, my message, and working on it for 7 years. What do you think became real for that person at that moment when they heard themselves say out loud that they've been working on this for 7 years? Like long enough, like this got to end. And I really felt called, like based on similar work we've done with the Goddards and others, like we can totally help these people. And I told them, like, we can help you. Here's exactly how we'd help you. And then at the end, I was like, you know what? Like, based on everything I've said again, I know I could help you. And I said, I would love to work with you. It would be so much fun, and we would crush it for you. And your life and business would look completely differently. So like, yeah, we should work together. And she's like, yeah, I think we totally should. Can I have a quick conversation with my I'll bring you back. I'll text you today. I'm in 45 minutes. My experience is, well, we shouldn't work together. Most times they're like, yeah, I think we should. Or like, oh, I really want to, but, right? Can you see yourself doing that? But preceding it with like, just again, reminding them, I know I can help you and I would love to work with you. Do you think people want to be told that? I would love to work with you. We would have so much fun. I'd love to see you get where it is you want to go. Okay, before I wrap up, any last questions or thoughts? I know we've shared a lot. Am I?
That if someone doesn't feel or see the potential of that positive side that they can have, what do you ask them to help them to recognize that? And same on the downside, if someone's giving you lukewarm answers and it's not,
yeah,
your vision isn't compelling or the dream isn't.
Yeah, so I said, what do you do in that like possibility and cost part? Or if you're trying to get someone to tell you about like, what are your dreams? Like what's really possible? Like, where do you want to go? And they're just not giving you anything, right? What questions can you ask? Or if you're asking someone like, hey, what's the cost? And they're not going there, right? So, like for me, now there's an intention. You might not have. When I ask someone where they want to get, that's the very first question I ask. I intentionally ask them, so where do you want to get? Because really, what that allows me to do is to create that space between where they want to, what the dream would be. And if someone ever says to me, like, I just don't have a dream, like I don't have a vision, well, that is where I might be able to start serving them first. Whether we work together or not, right? And it's like, well, what does it feel like to not have a dream? What does it feel like to not have a vision for your life? Again, from that place of curiosity, like, what's that like for you? Right? My experience of mine is the only reason someone wouldn't go to the cost is, again, it's just too painful. Like, they're just not ready. And I think sometimes we put this unnecessary pressure on ourselves, like every call has to end in enrollment. But again, that's kind of like showing up with an agenda, and it just puts this unnecessary pressure on us and them. But yeah, I just come from this place of curiosity around it. Like, hey, what's that feel like to not have a goal in life, not have a dream? Would you want to have that? Right? And again, because I'm also looking for, like, is this someone that I would really want to enroll?
Kind of to piggyback off of what was said, I mean, is it kind of that the person is focusing on the cost of, like the difficulties of going into what their vision is what keeps them from ever producing a vision, right? They don't ever produce a vision because as soon as you give yourself a place to go, then you have some parameters for failure. Then you have, well, what if it hurts because I dreamed this for my life, but what if I never get it?
Yeah, totally. And sometimes, like, that's a conversation you can have with them. It's like, so what's more painful? Like, to have a vision and not see it come to pass, or just stay stuck, like, where you're at?
It's already a cost conversation.
Yeah, it's already there. Yeah, they're already experiencing the cost by not having the vision. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that question. What a great question. This guy's awesome. What a rock star. It's like the story of the chickens that go to the conference to be taught by turkeys how to fly. And like by second day at the conference, they're flying all over the place. And then they all get out and walk home. Right? Like, we do that all the time. I question was like you give me all these ideas. Like, how do I make sure I implement it? One of the things that I'm a huge believer in, and back when I used to hop, anyone careers in their day. Like, I literally wake up in the bed in the evening doing a thing, and my wife would go, "Oh, you are hopeless." Like, right? She never said that. She always believed in me. That's why I stuck with it. But I was literally like, here's what I would do. I would learn about something and then decide if I wanted to do it and go sell it to someone. I just don't have that mechanism between. And it's got me a lot of trouble. It's also served me. Like, I'm just not afraid to jump and build a parachute on the way down. Like, I have no mechanism between, like, I'm interested in it, and then, like, this period where you should probably do due diligence and really thoroughly check it out and do your research and maybe, like, I just don't have that. Right? But it's also how I fed my family, so it's been okay. Like, it's done all right for me, right? But I think so many people around something like this is like, oh, I've got to really go and internalize this. I've got to really practice it in the mirror. Like, I've got to really get good at it. And then I'll start to think about taking action on it. It's like, no, the next enrollment call you have, you put something around this into practice. Either the framing up, or the possibility of the cost, or try the whole darn thing. Like, what is there to lose? Like, mastery, refinement, never, like, this is not refinement. This is not mastery. We think it is. The refiner's fire, mastery is like getting out the playing field. Like, this is sideline. We're on the sidelines of the game right now, and it's awesome. We're doing a lot of preparation. We're in the weight room. We're like working out, getting exercise. This is not the game. And way too often we confuse this is the game. And it's almost like it feels so good. It's like, I really like accomplished a lot of stuff at that conference. It's like, I really did a lot of stuff. It's like, no, you actually just got excited and felt good about it. I mean, if we're being honest, like, none of us did anything until we go do something. So that's like my biggest recommendation, my biggest piece of advice. I'll run into clients of ours when I've been to our whole coaching program. I'll be like, hey, how's your talks going? It's like, I'm still working on it. And I'm like, I'm gonna get you out of the airplane. Like you gotta go, right? So one of the things that, to recap the enrollment narrative, so one of the things that I told Andy and Natalie that we would do. Andy, can you pull up the next slide real quick? So we've not actually taught the enrollment narrative publicly a whole lot. It's how I've always sold. Started teaching it to some of our private clients, because so many of our clients would work with us to develop their story and the message, and then they would go out and work with someone else to go through a really late sales training, and then come back to us and be like, the sales training I just learned does not align at all with like my message, and I don't feel authentic at all in saying it. And so we said, well, why don't we start teaching this? So this is the whole framework. The mindset for enrollment, framing up the call, their story, the possibility and the cost, your solution, social proof story, which we didn't get into today, which is sharing a success story of someone like that person you've already worked with, because they have to see that. Like, in order for you to take me to the promised land, I have to know that you've taken someone else or yourself. So if you don't have social proof yet, it can be your story for now, right? And then it's your story. And then the last part is actual, well, it should have number 8 on there, is the actual enrollment, how to overcome objections, right? So we built this whole thing out into an online course. And I built a version of it specifically for doTERRA, which I've never done before. Because I always wanted to test that. I always wanted to take our content, our material, and customize it for a specific company, a specific industry to really tailor it. So I have a course for the enrollment narrative that is for our coaching clients. I've developed a version of the enrollment narrative specifically for doTERRA to have conversations with customers and builders. Okay? We sell that course with the coaching program right now for $2,400. I want to test something and do something really cool, and I want to sell it to you guys for $197. And you would just be absolutely insane not to buy it, if I can just be humble about it. Because it's like, I don't care about the money. If I cared about the money, I wouldn't charge you $197 for it. I want you to buy it so you can use it and I can get feedback from you and see what we need to edit, and see what we need to modify, and see how we can refine and make it better, because I have a vision of helping this company in a really, really big way. So any of you are interested in the enrollment narrative, you can go to, oh, this is Jeremy. Remember the story of Jeremy I told you that I opened with? Really struggling? He was actually the first patient we took through the enrollment narrative. Or sorry, the first patient, the first client, I'm this patient. Taking people through the enrollment there is always like kind of having a patient, right? It's like you gotta do some surgery, remove some old bad stuff, right? So Jeremy's like, I finally feel like I'm able to enroll in a way that feels like me. I finally feel like I'm able to enroll in a way that feels authentic. And he goes, you know what's interesting? My enrollment conversations don't feel like an enrollment anymore, they just feel like a conversation. And in June, in the middle of the pandemic, he enrolled 16 out of 17 patients and had the largest level of history of practice. His enrollments have gone from year to date 18% to 57%. He just made it easy for him. So the same enrollment narrative that we taught parents is what we've created. And on this next slide, if you text the word challenge to that, okay, take a picture of this. As soon as you can, you text challenge to that number, it'll automatically send you a text back with a link where you can go purchase the entire enrollment narrative course for $197. Does that make sense? So you got to text challenge to the number, no caps, no quotation, just the word challenge to that number, they'll text you back a link. For those of you who buy, and because we'll see, for anyone that buys the enrollment narrative course, what's today? Friday? When's the convention end? Tomorrow. Anyone that buys it by tomorrow, I will do a follow-up group coaching call with you to actually get like feedback from you and also coach you around the narrative, like what you're struggling with and where you feel stuck. So we'll do a group Zoom call for anyone that buys the course, and I'll stay on there as long as people have questions. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. You guys are amazing. Like, I really, really, really hope you see how powerful you are. I really hope you see that, like, your ticket, like the golden ticket to creating anything you want in your life, is mastering enrollment. And I just believe so much in you guys and your message. And yeah, thanks for having me here. You can share this offer with other people on your team. Just tell them, and by the way, you can take advantage of the Beyond Saturday, but to have a bonus session with us. And then one thing I want you to promise, if you're going to buy the course, you've got to promise to give us feedback. Because I want to make it better, and I want to refine it, and I want to customize it even more for this industry, for this area. Yeah. Isn't Chris amazing? Overwhelming feedback. Chris is a rock star. We have loved all of the insight, power, and clarity that he's allowed us to gain on us. So Matt and I spent a lot of time on ourselves, right? Like, we have been through the why exercises, we've been through the seminars and the books and the audiobooks, and nobody has had more impact on helping us get clear on who we are, what we stand for, and what our mission is, in doTERRA and out. So I hope you felt that today. I hope that you can get the same clarity that you're seeking, and that you'll be empowered to lead your own revolution and change the world inside of doTERRA and out. So let's give Chris another huge round of applause. Thank you so much.